In this video we rack up more birds for our big year, we take the first rodeo on our newly converted van, and we go looking for many rare birds, including a mega rare American Tern. It took around 4 hours for us to get to Somerset. We'd parked our van near Grey Lake RSPB Reserve.
Guess where we are?
Not in a travel lodge. It's about time. Cool, eh?
Yeah.
We're in our van, it's the first rodeo, and we are in Somerset. Tomorrow we're going to try and pick up some more birds for our year list, hopefully including Gargani, and then Sunday we might try and go for a very rare little bunting. The little bunting.
Which you're really excited about.
I am quite excited about, and that's a bit further south than here. Anyway, I'm going to bed now because I'm tired. I'm going to have some wine first. But good night, and we'll see you in the morning.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Whilst Kaylee was getting ready, I went out and had a little walk to see if there were any birds around. The air was full of birdsong and some nice spring sounds too, with the loudest voice being from the chiff-chaff. These are small warblers that generally visit in the spring and summer. They're usually quite early birds to arrive back. Most migrate to Africa for the winter. A few of the more northern birds sometimes come to the UK and winter here. But their song is a clear sign of spring coming. Other birds taking part in the dawn chorus were goldfinch and also the wren.
Morning folks, we're back birding. We're at RSPB Grey Lake in Somerset. Kaylee's in the van, sorting herself out. I've had a bit of a mooch around the car park. There's some lovely signs of spring with a very loud chiff-chaff you can possibly hear in the background. It's been going on for a while. I think it's time to have a mooch around, see if we can find some more birds for our year list. Stick with us.
When Kaylee was ready, we walked out onto the reserve, almost immediately seeing this beautiful male marsh harrier gliding majestically over the reed bed.
Hello, good morning. I don't know if you can see us because of the sun. It's a lovely morning, although it is raining lightly.
Just one cloud.
This is like one cloud above us. Like some weird kind of cartoon. Oh, just a fly over by some geese. Yeah, we're at Grey Lake. We're having a wander around, see what we can find. Already seen a marsh harrier, that was kind of cool. Let's see what else we can find.
We wandered towards the hides, hearing and seeing quite a few small birds on the way, like this dunnock. When we arrived at the hide, we looked out onto the scrape. There were a small amount of geese and ducks, mainly widgeon, that were sat in groups, either roosting or preening, and close by there was a lovely pair of teal. Another bird that was dozing in the sun was this snipe that was uncharacteristically sitting out in the open, which was lovely to see. We did see our friend the wren again, who jumped onto a post very briefly, but now we thought it was time to head back to the van and move on. On the way back, we heard a lot of Chetty's warblers. This species is becoming reasonably common in these environments. You hear them, but you very, very rarely see them. Hey folks, lovely little morning stroll at RSPB Grey Lake. Got 2 new birds for our year list, signs of spring as well. Chiff-chaff singing lovely. Got some views of a marsh harrier, some snipe, and also those of you will know, or those of you may know, that Chetty's warblers aren't always the easiest birds to photograph or get footage of, and I actually managed to get them. So I'm super pleased, and that's another bird for the year list. Now we're off, only about 15 minutes up the road, to RSPB Ham Wall to see if we can find Gargani that were there yesterday. Fingers crossed, because that's one of our last British ducks that we need. Let's go. The next stop was about 15 minutes up the road to Ham Wall RSPB. We'd read reports of not only there being a Gargani there, which is a great duck to add to our year list, and one of our last few UK duck species to add, but also apparently there was some glossy ibis here, This is a bird we have seen earlier this year, but still quite a rarity. But as we got to the viewpoint where these birds were apparently present, the heavens opened. Hey everybody, we've gained refuge. It's absolutely hammering it down. Apparently it wasn't really due today, but it's horrendous. We're going to wait. Apparently there's some glossy ibis somewhere placed, which, although we don't need for the ears, a cool bird. We haven't found the gargany yet, but I think it's just staying dry for the next few minutes. It is a priority, and then we'll continue birding. Once the rain died down from a medium monsoon just to a little bit of rain, we headed back out onto the reserve to try and find our target species. And it wasn't just us and the other birders that were trying to dry off, this cormorant was too. Looking out onto the pools in front of us, there were plenty of birds, ducks and waders like this group of shoveler and black-tailed godwit. Another scarcer species of wading bird that had been reported here was the spotted redshank. We'd already seen one this year at Burton Mere, our local nature reserve, but still a lovely bird to see. Whilst we were looking over the reed bed, there was quite a few other birders that were specifically looking for bitterns. These birds had been quite vocal, making their deep, guttural, boomy sound for quite a while, but are notoriously difficult to spot, as they spend most of their time in dense reed beds and are really camouflaged. Regardless of this, one had taken to the air and someone spotted it, shouting, "Bitten, bitten!" And across at the back of the reed bed, a bittern flew right across in front of us, giving us great views. And another great bird for our year list. After the excitement of the bittern, we carried on looking at the scene in front of us, hoping for the gargany. In a very kind of nature programme, David Attenborough kind of thing, there was a couple of great crested grebes mating in front of us. I had to get this on footage, maybe a little inappropriate, but still an amazing sight. After some time of scanning the scene in front of us, it looked like we weren't about to get either the gargany or the glossy ibis, until 4 dark shapes flew in. These were the ibis. They soon landed in front of us and started feeding. This is a species that breeds in southeast Europe and winters generally in Africa, although visits from the species to this country are increasing year on year. Still a great bird to see and a personal favourite of mine, and also this is the first time I've seen more than one at a time, which is a real treat. By now we'd been here for a while and unfortunately no gargany, so we headed back towards the van. En route, seeing this very friendly robin that was feeding out of people's hands, and as we got to a river bridge near the car park, we saw a lot of people, so we investigated what they were looking at, and it happened to be a grass snake. This amazing creature was out in the sun on some rocks on the edge of the bridge. Coincidentally, that morning Kaylee had mentioned that she'd love to see a grass snake and she still hadn't seen one yet, so this was a real treat for her. We watched it for quite a while as it weaved in between the rocks and the wire, at one point looking directly at me, which was kind of weird but cool at the same time. This was lovely and Kaylee was over the moon. Folks, we didn't get the gargany, but we got something that Kaylee really enjoyed seeing.
We got a grass snake.
A grass snake, and a really cool one. I've got some great footage of it.
And a bit.
And we got a bit, and we got really good views of it was a constellation, but a good one, which was 4 glossy ibis, which are like the rarest thing we saw today.
And a grass snake.
And a grass snake. We didn't get the gargany, unfortunately, but we are going now a couple of hours down south because someone spotted a mega.
Foster's tern.
Let's go and have a look. Whilst we were at Hamwall, Kaylee had spotted the report of the Forster's tern that had been there the previous year, so we set off on the 2-hour drive. It's busy at RSP on today. Super busy, loads of people. RSPB on was very busy that day, with us having to park in an overflow car park. We headed on to the reserve and towards Shipstall Point, where the tern had been sighted. Hey folks, we've kind of lost some of the crowds, but we have seen a few birders. Oh, there's mud here. The birders have kind of encouraged me a bit.
as far as seeing the Forster's Tern, a few of them have actually seen it today. So we're heading there now. Sound out of breath now, don't I? Must be out of shape. Follow us, join us. Let's see if we can find it.
This walk was about a mile and took us through a little bit of woodland. As we got towards Shipstall Point, we bumped into another birder who recognised us from our YouTube channel. He was a very nice chap and we had a lovely chat. He also pointed out the Forster's Tern that was in the distance through the heat haze. It was sat on a red post in the bay. This species is an American tern and does very occasionally turn up in the UK. This individual frequented the reserve last year, subsequently disappearing in the winter and then now coming back. We decided to move round onto the beach to try and get slightly better views, and although not much closer, it still paid off. It was incredible to see this mega rare tern back in the UK. We stood in the sun watching it for quite a while. It didn't move, it seemed to be quite happy sitting on the post. As Kaylee continued to watch the tern through the scope, I took a little bit of a look around to see if there was anything more. I scanned round both the edges of the water and the bay itself. On the shoreline there were a few waders, mainly oyster catchers that were pecking around for food in the shallows. Out in the bay, as well as the Forster's Tern, there was a couple of cormorants like this one that was sitting on a buoy. As we were leaving, walking down the path, a speedboat came in and spooked the Forster's Tern, which then flew down the channel in front of us. With this mega rare tern on our year list, it was now time to move on, which meant another 2.5 hours on to Devon. It was towards the end of the day now and we arrived at Broad Sands, where over the last week a rare little bunting had been sighted feeding with some other birds on the edge of a car park. So we parked up and headed down, seeing on the way this lovely jay. As we got to the car park, the sun was slowly going down and there were a few people playing football in the car park, which made us think we may not see the little bunting. Nevertheless, we kept on looking. There was some bird life in the bushes and trees, including some long-tailed tits that were flitting about, feeding, and eventually some birds came to the ground, including a dunnock, and after some time a searle bunting joined the dunnock, which was amazing to see, and it's a beautiful bird. If any of you are familiar with our channel, have seen a previous video with this bird, you will know this is a quite special species for me and one I've only seen once before. So this really made my day. Hey everybody.
Hi.
Unfortunately we didn't get the little bunting. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I don't know if you can hear in the background.
That might be why.
That's one of the reasons. Somebody's
A petrol car.
petrol radio controlled kind of car thing around the car park that's extremely loud.
Footballers.
And there was people playing football in the car park too.
Why
But
not?
we did get brief views of some searle bunting, which was excellent, and it's the second time I've seen those, so that was lovely. I'm going to come back early in the morning. We just need to find somewhere to stay the night. Anyway, so stick with us and I'll see you in the morning.
We woke up to quite a chilly, overcast morning.
Morning folks, it's a colder morning. We're off back to where we were last night, where the little bunting supposedly is. We're going to go off soon and try and find it. It's reasonably early in the morning. Kelly's brushing her teeth. I'm just about to. Stick with us.
We headed about half an hour down the road to Broad Sands car park. Again. This time there weren't any people playing football or with loud radio controlled vehicles. There were a couple of dog walkers, but that was it. So we found a spot that wasn't too close to the bushes and set ourselves up ready, hopefully to find this little bunting. It seemed that turning up early was the right decision. The birds were far more active, with lots of birds coming down in front of us for seed. Most of these were searle bunting, with numerous males and females, and a whole bunch of house sparrows joining them as well. This in its own right was a real spectacle for me, seeing numerous seal buntings at one time, and so close too. It was absolutely stunning. This bunting, although a British breeding bird, is very, very localised and by no means a common bird. Although their numbers are increasing, their range isn't increasing much, so still a real avian spectacle. I was so tied up and engrossed in trying to get decent pictures and videos of the seal bunting, I almost forgot about the little bunting until Kaylee spotted it.
What have you found, babe? Woohoo!
And it was markedly different. A smaller bunting with chestnut and black markings on its face. It didn't seem too bothered by us. It came reasonably close, feeding with the other sparrows and buntings. This species breeds in eastern Scandinavia and Russia, and generally winters in the Far East, so it's lovely to see it here in the UK. They are reasonably regular visitors to the UK in very small numbers, and can be found in mixed bunting flocks like this one. It is a bird I've wanted to see for a while, so I was super happy to get this one on the list. Not only the year list, but my life list too. I could have stood and watched it for a long time, but it was time to leave both the bunting and the other birders behind. Before we left the area, we took a walk onto the beach, passing some bushes on the way, which, well, there was another seal bunting. There was also some greenfinch too. We headed on towards the beach past the lovely colourful beach shacks. This made it look like a quintessential English seaside resort. We finally got onto the front where the tide was in, and it was blowing an absolute gale. There were some mad folk that were swimming in the sea, but it was too cold for us, so we headed back towards the van.
Guess you found the little bunting. She found it. It was coming down to seed with the seal buntings. Showed super nice. It was absolutely brilliant, and that's a lifer. Woo! I don't know where we're going next. I haven't really planned it, so let's see.
We went a few minutes down the coast towards RSPB Labrador Bay, where although it was blowing an absolute gale, we did have a quick walk round. There weren't many birds around. I'd expect they were all really hunkered down as it was really very windy. But it's always a beautiful place and the views are stunning. We had a look round, no birds, with some sheep just enjoying the grass. But now, time to move on and decide what to do next.
Where are we going?
Portland Bird Observatory
Why are we going there?
to hopefully see little owls and anything else they might have there.
Excellent.
Sounds fun, doesn't it?
It does. Stay with us. Let's do it.
Our subscriber that helped us pointing out the Forster's Tern on also told us about Portland Bill, saying there was a good chance of us seeing little owl there, which we needed for our year list.
We're at Portland Bill and it's very windy. It's really windy. We're going little owl hunting, if we can find it.
We headed towards where we thought the little owl had been seen. It didn't take eagle-eyed Kaylee long to find the little owl. It was sat between a couple of rocks. But almost as soon as we found it, it retreated into the rocks. We waited for a while, but it didn't come back out. So we headed towards the bird observatory and the fields surrounding it. And we noticed almost immediately a chiff-chaff. It was hanging around a little pool. In the vegetation surrounding the pool there was an awful lot of movement. On closer inspection there were even more chiff-chaff. I think there were about 4 or 5 of them. They were flitting in and out of the vegetation, coming down to have drinks of water. I guess these birds may have just migrated in from Europe. We moved towards the edge of the field to see if we could find some other birds. Apparently this area is very, very good for accidentals and rarities. Unfortunately we didn't find any, but we did find another species for our year list, the linnet. There were small flocks of them that were landing on the hedges and fences. We now headed back to the quarry where we'd seen the little owl before, hoping to get better views, and when we arrived, Kaylee spotted it almost immediately. It had moved perch to a slightly different little bit of rock, but it was sat there and it didn't seem too bothered. It was sat occasionally preening, but generally just looking around. After a while, it looked straight at me, which was a little bit odd, but still. These birds have amazing hearing, so it probably heard me. We walked round and changed position in order to hopefully get slightly different views. It took me lying down with the camera on some grass to try and get steadier footage due to the high winds. Regardless of this, it was a really stunning bird to see, and by far the closest I've ever seen it, and another lovely addition to our year list. Now it was time to move on, and we thought we'd try and settle some unfinished business, which meant going back to RSPB Ham Wall in Somerset. Hey folks, we're back at Ham Wall. We were here yesterday looking for gargani. We did get bitten in glossy ibis, but we thought we'd, on the way back up north, we'd try and settle some unfinished business. So let's see if we can find them this time. If not, I'm sure there'll be some other cool stuff about. Let's go and have a look. By this time it was evening. We walked out onto the reserve to see if we could get the gargani. As soon as we got there, we spotted our friends the glossy ibis. All four of them were feeding at the opposite side of the pool. What a great bird. Although we could watch these birds forever, we did have some other birds to find. This meant taking our eyes off the glossy ibis and scanning the scene in front of us. There were some other birds there present, including some geese, ducks and the black-tailed godwits we'd seen the previous day. At that time I hadn't realised how close to summer plumage they are. When we usually see them in the winter they're kind of grey, but now they're getting a really lovely russet terracotta-y type colour about them, which is beautiful. After quite some scanning I picked out one of the gargani. There were two males and a female almost directly in front of us, but quite far away, although close enough for identification. This species is a British breeding bird, but very scarce and very secretive, and is far from common, and a real pleasure to see. After further scanning we found another couple of males which were in a different spot, but now we thought it was time to have a quick walk around the reserve before it got dark. This reserve has quite a large area of marshland. We walked around it for quite a while. It was reasonably quiet, although we did get some excellent views of great crested grebes that came quite close in. Although this is one of the commoner species of UK grebe, it's no less beautiful and one that's a pleasure to watch. Leaving the grebes behind us, we wandered around the path, getting stuck in the mud a few times, still seeing a few birds like this Canada goose, and a little bit further up the path, a little egret that was fishing by the side of a stream. We finally got back to where we started. I had one last look out, spotting the gargani again, but then, as the weather was coming in, it was time to head back towards the van. Luckily, getting a brief sighting of this male blackcap on the way. Another bird for our year list. Great. Success with the gargani. Second time lucky. There was also 4 glossy ibis again this time.
And blackcap.
And a blackcap.
Yeah.
We didn't see the grass snake again, which is a shame. But what a weekend.
We've had a great weekend. Brilliant.
That was excellent. We've seen all sorts of stuff. We've had a lifer with the little bunting. We've had a mega with the Forster's tern.
Little owl.
We've had little owl.
So we only need a snowy owl now.
Yeah, I think that's unlikely though. That's wishing, maybe. Anyway, excellent. Please like.
Please subscribe.
And please press the notification bell. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.